the Buddha began his teachings of liberation with the Four Noble Truths. And the first truth, which is acknowledging, accepting, and turning towards the suffering, all of the difficulties that we experience in life. Rather than turning away, trying to avoid or ignore or suppress or medicate, that the path begins by an encouragement to feel your pain, to see it clearly, all of the subtle ways that life is difficult and unpleasant and stressful and tedious, and the big ways, the big traumas, heartbreaks, losses, griefs that we experience, and that the path to freedom, he starts by saying, embrace your suffering, turn towards it, feel it, learn to and it's one of the reasons why he said this path that I'm teaching is counter-instinctual. It's against the norm. It's against the stream, because it's totally normal to turn away from, to run from our pain. It's abnormal. It's radical to say, I'm going to actually turn towards it. I'm going to sit in it. I'm going to learn to feel it with the understanding that that's how we can heal, how we can wake up, and how we develop compassion by feeling pain. And compassion is necessary because there is so many difficulties, so much unpleasantness in life. Have you noticed? Sometimes Buddhism is mischaracterized as saying life is suffering. I think that that's a misunderstanding, a mischaracterization. It's not what he's saying. He's saying there is suffering in life. Everybody's life. No matter how much abundance they have called in. Still suffering. Unavoidable. Everybody. Until you become compassionate towards pain. Non-attached to pleasure. So half of what we do in mindfulness is seeing the impermanent nature of things and learning to let go. And the other half of what we do is learning to turn towards our pain and sit in it and feel it and learning to care about it. For the last few weeks, we've been doing loving kindness meditation practice. And tonight I want to shift to compassion practice and borrowing a Tibetan Buddhist meditation technique called Tonglen, giving and receiving, where we intentionally breathe in the reality of the First Noble Truth. Breathe in the suffering in your life, suffering in the world, and then breathe out the intention, the aspiration to meet suffering, pain, suffering, difficulty, ignorance, oppression, inequality, the reality of the world with compassion, with caring, with friendliness, with empathy. So I'll give a guided meditation and we'll do this practice of turning towards, breathing in the difficult, breathing out the skillful response. I said in the beginning that the definition of awakening is seeing reality clearly and responding wisely. And so that's what this practice is. Clearly see the suffering, your own and others, and train your heart and your mind to respond wisely to it. Compassion is the only wise response to pain, to suffering. Even if it's veiled, even if it's not obvious, even if they look like their suffering is creating great success for them, still worthy of compassion. All beings. So that's the practice we'll do. We'll have a little short discussion afterwards, and I'll turn it over to Eben. I think it's getting too cold in here. Although you need to be uncomfortable for this practice, so you could just breathe in the icy cold air conditioning. Mikey, would you the AC's right there on the wall? I think it's turned down to 70, maybe turn it up to 74. Or we could turn the heat on and do hot meditation. You got it there?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like the 70. Yeah. Thanks, Owen. Appreciate it. So find a way to sit that's upright, relaxed. As you're ready, allowing your eyes to be closed. Establishing mindfulness in the body and the present, feeling the contact with the chair, the cushion, how your hands are resting. Allow your breath to come and go at its own natural pace. No need to control the breath. Just feel it, receive it. And reflect on some of the difficulties you've experienced in this lifetime, perhaps recent, perhaps in the past. The ways that you've suffered, the suffering that many of us experience of addiction, the suffering of neglect or abuse, suffering of bias or oppression, prejudice. Suffering of other people being unkind. And also the suffering that we all experience of our own human mind being at times critical, judgmental, insecure, jealous, afraid. The Buddha says suffering is the process of being subject to sickness and aging and death. Suffering is all of the experience of being separated from that which we wish to keep, that which we love. All of the loss, grief, sorrow of existence in this world of impermanence. He says suffering is also being met with all of the painful, unpleasant sights, sounds, smells, tastes, experiences that we are bombarded with, all of the pain. You don't have to fabricate any suffering. Just what you've experienced, just what you know to be true about your own life. Not negating all of the joy, happiness, beauty. Just acknowledging the sorrow, the suffering, the difficulties. And as you breathe in, imagine that you're breathing in your own suffering. As you breathe out, that you breathe out compassion, the intention to care, to be friendly towards your own pain. You may even just say, breathing in suffering in your mind, breathing out the intention of compassion. May I learn to care about my own pain, emotional, physical, mental pain. And if you care to, there's an added kind of visualization to the practice where you imagine the suffering that you're breathing in is dark and heavy, like smoke from a fire like soot, the heavy, hot, toxic suffering. And then as we breathe it in, the heart, the mind, our Buddha nature purifies it. And as we exhale, you're exhaling as though like an air conditioner, cool, clear, refreshing. Breathing in hot, heavy, suffering smoke. Breathing out clear, light, refreshing compassion. Soothing. Keeping awareness with the breath. When your mind wanders into stories, just come back to the breath. Breathing in the dukkha, the suffering, the first noble truth. Breathing out compassion, karuna, caring, mercy, empathy for your own pain. As you exhale, softening your belly as an embodied form of compassion, softening to the pain. With the understanding that this is a universal experience, law of nature, that we're all born into a mind and body that creates suffering. It's not your fault, nor anybody else's. Opening our compassion practice to others, starting with the people sitting near you right here in the room. Breathe in the suffering of your sangha, of your neighbors. Breathe out compassion for each other. Breathing in the suffering of our shared process of aging and sickness, illnesses, injuries, diseases. Breathing out compassion for each other's physical forms, this body. Breathing in the suffering of loss, of heartbreak, of betrayals or abandonments. Breathing out compassion for the experience of sorrow. Breathing in the suffering of the human mind, the judging mind, the fear, the restlessness, the doubts, the craving and aversion of the human condition that we all share. Breathing out compassion for this experience of having a mind that is so often less than wise, less than kind. Allowing this intention of compassion to spread out in all directions to the unknown masses driving by, living in the neighborhood, to the north and south and east and west. With awareness of all of the suffering on this planet, all of the suffering of all people everywhere, both the rich and the poor, the free and the incarcerated, the privileged and the oppressed. Breathing in the reality of suffering on this planet. Not just the humans, but animals. The planet itself, struggling, suffering. Breathing out compassion, the intention to care deeply, to respond with mercy, with forgiveness, with compassion. Compassion for all living beings. And just return to you. As I taught last week in the loving kindness, the Buddha said we could search all realms of existence and never find anyone more worthy of our love than ourselves. Same goes for compassion. Remember your worthiness and your ability to develop the skill of meeting yourself with compassion. Although my main Buddhist inspiration and lineage is the Theravadan Buddhist tradition, mostly out of Thailand and Burma, the forest tradition and the meditation monks in Burma. I don't know if you know this, but most Buddhists don't actually meditate. So if you really want, you have to actually find the meditating Buddhists. And the ones that inspired me most are the Thai forest tradition and the Burmese meditation monks tradition. And in our tradition, compassion is developed through mindfulness a lot, through just sitting with present time awareness and feeling your pain. And then by this practice of just radiating compassion towards all living beings, inclining the heart, setting your mind towards compassion. This practice is a Tibetan Buddhist practice, one of the few Tibetan practices that I borrow and that I've been practicing for decades myself, because I feel like it speaks to the First Noble Truth so perfectly, that there is suffering. So breathe it in. Rather than just sort of acknowledging it's there, I like this visualization of it's hot, it burns, it's like breathing in toxic fumes, and that there's a ability within us to purify it. The compassionate heart purifies it, and you breathe out clear, refreshing, compassionate air. I know some people are like, shit, is that suffering going to get stuck in there? I don't want to breathe in this heavy smoke, giving me lung cancer. But the perspective here is that actually there's some aspect of our being that is purifying, and that by breathing it in, we're allowing ourselves to feel it because it's already here. We know, we're not creating something, it's here. We're just acknowledging it. And then we're training the mind, the heart, to be more friendly, more compassionate, breathing out compassion. I used to have a thing that I would read, I don't have it anymore, from a young, one of these reincarnated lamas, and he was like a teenager. And but even though he was a teenager, he was this famous teacher and then reincarnated, but they made him start teaching as a teenager, and something Rinpoche, they called him Shrimpoche. He's just a little guy. And he was questioned about his teachings. And he said, mostly I just see myself as like a air conditioner repair dude. Because that's all I'm teaching people, is how to breathe in the suffering and breathe out the cool, refreshing response of compassion. And so people come to me and they talk about their suffering, and I say, okay, breathe it in and breathe out compassion. It's a really simple job teaching the Dharma. Just teach people to develop compassion. That's what we need. It's one of the core practices to do that. Any questions or comments about it before I turn it over to the yogi?
What is meant by compassion? Like
Caring. Mercy, empathy, tenderness. We can use all of these different words. It means to care about, rather than, what's your natural response when you stub your toe? Any anger? The natural survival instinct to pain generally is aversion, anger, ow, fuck you, I hate you, like I want to kill you. Some level of like aversion to our pain. Compassion's the opposite. Acceptance, softness, caring about it rather than hating. Still ow. Ow is the right response. It's what do we do with the ouch? Is it ouch, I hate you, or is it ouch, I care about you? I feel friendliness and tenderness towards my pain, not hatred, not anger. And it's a radical thing that we can all develop. It's a skill. It's both a skill that we develop through meditation, and then also we would say it's part of your true nature. It's a innate ability in all of us that is rarely accessed for our own pain without meditation. Many of us, you have a lot of compassion for others. If you're a parent, you have compassion for your children, your friends, your loved ones, compassion for others. But how about your own pain? Not so easy. It's counter instinctual. There's some part of our biological evolution that does have us caring about each other, but doesn't have us caring about ourselves all that well. So we meditate, we develop it, we practice it, and you fake it till you make it. Sometimes we do this kind of meditation and it just feels like, I don't mean this at all, but I'll just keep doing it until I mean it. Any other thoughts? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Eben and give you a little disclaimer. I have no idea what this dude is about to say. But what I know is that I love him and I trust him, and he's been a great friend and a serious spiritual practitioner for a long time. And I think that some of our conversations is that he practices Buddhism, but also leans a little bit more towards some Hindu esoteric devotional practices than I do. So keep an open mind to the Dharma coming in different forms. And he's going to share some of his book and have some discussion with us. And I'm glad you're here, my brother. Just clip it. Mm-hmm.
Is that good?
Yeah, good.
First thing I just want to say is thank you. Thank you to everybody who's here. Take a look around, see what the Sangha really is. See what this practice really is, that we make up this practice, our daily lives, our life experiences. That's the truth as we experience it in this incarnation. Thank you to Noah. I love this man. What a wonderful gift to have somebody that I met at a time when I was in great transition, just coming out of my deep, dark addiction, and to encounter somebody who grew up pretty much the way I did, Santa Cruz and Ojai, in sort of a hippie environment, and rebelled against that and found punk rock and drugs and destruction and the incredible camaraderie of that Sangha, of the punk rock tradition and the music that just inspired us and brought us together, and to find somebody in recovery and in a spiritual way of life that we could build a new Sangha that still embodied a sense of rebellion and fun and wonder. It was just such a gift. I mean, Noah and I met, and it was just, I assume the feeling was mutual, but it was just like we were instantly brothers. Just, you know, when you meet those people in your life and you just see that truth so clearly, and it was such a relief. And, you know, just real quickly, next thing I know, it's like, oh, you live in Santa Cruz? Cool. I live in the city. Went down, let me stay at his house, went to a punk rock show, hung out, met a bunch of cool people, and it was just very inviting, and we had so much in common. It's just such a wonderful gift, and to stay friends all these years, and I mean, and it goes back. I don't want to get too far off I want to get into the book, so hopefully I do tend to ramble, but we have his father. My aunt would study under his father, I found out later, and we just have sort of a lineage almost together with our experience. It's wonderful to find those people in our lives, so it's such an honor to be here. Just wonderful, and as a role model, as a writer, just to know that, wow, man, Noah wrote a book. He's written a bunch of them. I want to do that. And this book, if anything, really is my attempt at just building Sangha. It's a true DIY, self-publish. We're living in this incredible time when we can write a book, put it out ourselves, market it freely through social media. There is actually a good side to that, believe it or not. And you don't have to have a website or a credit card reader or anything. I mean, we're living in this time when that really is a revolutionary time for being able to reach and build community, if I don't get too sidetracked by the other parts of social media that we've all experienced. So let me just say that, this book Yogi in Disneyland is a book about storytelling. It's a story about storytelling. And just to transition from what I just said, I mean, Noah is a wonderful storyteller. He's written a story of his life, and he teaches through storytelling. That's how this Sangha, in a large part was created from these books that Noah wrote. And he told us his life story, and isn't it wonderful that every life is a story, that maybe that's what incarnation really is. It's just a story. You can call it God, call it the universe, call it whatever it is. But to go from unmanifested to manifested is to become a being. And that being is a story in itself, an unadorned story of experience, of Dharma, of truth. Every one of us embodies that. Obviously the Buddha was a great storyteller, right? He didn't write anything down even. He was just telling stories, the story of his life, of his suffering, and of his journey to the truth, to clarity, to awakening. That's bitchin', right? And I'll start with a little story first, which I love, which is a Tonglen story. And I got this from Pema Chodron. I do want to say right off that I am not a scholar in Buddhism or Hinduism. I read, we have such a gift with so much media available to us nowadays. So I watch the YouTube and chant, YouTube videos and listen to books on Audible and read a lot of books. And it's just so wonderful to have access to all that at this time. But I'm not an expert other than an expert on my own suffering, my own life experience, and the joy and the clarity that I've gotten from being able to just become the witness to this incarnation. So, but one of the stories, I don't want to get too scholarly and pedantic, good word, up here, but one of the stories that I love from Pema Chodron is the story of Milarepa, who I didn't really know much about other than the Beastie Boys did a concert that I went to in 1996, and it was awesome. And I think it was called Milarepa Foundation or something like that. I didn't know what it was, but it was to raise money for Tibet and Tibetan Freedom Concert. Anybody went to that? So that was what I knew about Milarepa. But I read this book, and the story of Milarepa that I read was that he was a great meditator, and he sat in a cave and he just got down with meditation, and it was awesome. If he had to, he would live off of eating nettles. I love stories like this. You know what I mean? The guy he would turn green because he was just so deep into his meditation and just sit in this cave forever and just seek the truth, whatever came. And at one point, all these demons came into his cave and surrounded him. And it was super scary, I'm sure if you've sat in meditation long enough, you've run into some of those guys too. You know what I mean? It gets painful in there when it gets quiet, and that suffering and experience and resentment and regret and all that stuff starts coming up. So he's surrounded by all these demons, but he's a great meditator. So this is a Tonglen story. He starts to just meditate and become mindful of them being there. And some of them just disappear because he's seeing them and they dissipate and go away. And then he starts to do his metta practice, his, sending out compassion, mudita, and karuna and all that stuff. And all the other ones go away. He's able to just empty the cave. But there's one left. And he's the fiercest one of all. And he's got the mouth this big and huge fangs. And he's just like, I guess this guy's staying. And I'm sure you guys have some of those too, I mean, those ones that just refuse to go away through the practice. And so what does he do? He climbs up into the demon's mouth and lays down on his fangs because nothing else for him to do. He just faces it, climbs in there, and he's just, I guess, sends out love and compassion and acceptance and just surrenders to it. And the final demon goes away. So I just bring that up to show that, to demonstrate the power of story in expressing the truth. And that's really what I'm getting at in this book. So hope I haven't gone on too long with that. So it's story time now, kids. So hopefully you're not going to fall asleep. These are stories for awakening. not for bedtime. So Doubletree Hotel, Anaheim, Smiling Meditation, October 2015. I wake up in the dark of a hotel room. I cannot crack the heavy curtains to let in the light or even use the flashlight on my phone for fear of waking my sleeping wife and son. In the inky blackness, I find a pillow and sit. I start the day with Thich Nhat Hanh's smiling meditation for Disneyland. Breathing in, my body is calm. Breathing out, I am smiling. Breathing in, I am present in this moment. Breathing out, this is a wonderful moment. Throughout the day, I do a walking practice of this meditation by greeting everyone I meet with a smile. This simple practice transforms my being, anchoring me in the heart of love. Oh, I'm sorry, it's story time. Let's show you the picture. It's the smiling Cheshire cat, if you're ever wondering what he was smiling about. He's doing Thich Nhat Hanh smiling meditation. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, guys. That's weird. Welcome. It's Mickey. Arms outstretched. Prison art, of course. Got to keep it hardcore for the Dharma Punx. Welcome. Opening the gate to the Magic Kingdom. Walt's Disneyland dedication speech. To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here, age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world. July 17th, 1955. I stand and savor for a moment Walt's message, which first opened the gates of Disneyland's Magic Kingdom to the people of the world. This inspiration is God whispering in my ear. I receive messages of hope and joy. The infinite present exists between the past and future. Walt's dedication is an opening not just of Disneyland, but of the human heart. Your land, this happy place, thy kingdom come is not a place to which we go, but where we are. Walt's dedication is an invitation to enter the eternity of the here and now, in this moment. To open the heart is to enter the gate to the kingdom. O ye nobly born, starts many of the Buddhist texts. Enter ye into the happiest place on earth, the inner kingdom of the heart. And so the journey of 1,000 lifetimes begins. White Rabbit. Tunnel to Town Square. Look for the signs. No sooner am I centered in the ultimate reality than I'm instantly drawn away to the myriad distractions of the material world. Mara has many faces, both cruel and sublime. As Jack Kornfield says, the mind has no pride. It goes where it will. Immediately, I encounter a sign above the entryway to Town Square on Main Street, USA. It reads, "Here you leave today and enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy." I hope that sounds familiar to you guys who have a sitting practice. A fortuitous reminder, the path of spiritual enlightenment is lined by 1,000,000 brightly lit doorways which lead into delusion, ignorance, distraction, and desire. How quickly I forget my true nature, oneness with the divine, and I go chasing white rabbits down dark holes. But just as quickly I remember the true self. When anchored in God consciousness, all paths eventually lead home, even if I simply run out of road to travel. Keep coming back. Remember, home is found when one returns to the heart, to love. Anchor on the breath. Come back to the now. Start again. And off we go. I think we're going to move into Winnie the Pooh time. You can see him here with his 6 arms.
Did you do the art as well?
I did not do the art. Good question. Now I have about 25 different artists that seem to think this was a good idea. And they provided the illustrations free of charge. Go figure. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Fuzzy Buddha of the Forest. Holy Song, Heffalumps and Woozles, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Leaving through an above-ground sarcophagus in New Orleans Square Cemetery, I head up the sloping curve of a hill past the rivers of America to Pooh's Corner in Critter Country. Crossing a wooden bridge, the world becomes larger as I assume the perspective of a small woodland creature. Carrots are enormous, the earth is more vibrant, and music is flowing out of boulders into the air. A magic and whimsical chariot approaches in the shape of a beehive, and there is energy and sound buzzing around me. I enter the coach, clutching my son's eager hand, and my next journey begins. One blustery day in the 100-acre wood, a little bear named Winnie the Pooh set out in search of honey. Yes, I too am a silly bear, seeking a bit of sweetness in the material realm. But the realm of matter and solidity is also the realm of impermanence. In this space, I am soon flying about in the winds of change and uncertainty. Some actually find joy in being blown into the sky like a kite. Even wise old Owl sees the joy in letting go and wishes me a happy Wednesday. Then, just as quickly, the sky turns dark. The rain came down. The storms of life shower upon my coach as I travel through the dualistic plain. Inevitably, the river crept out its bed and leapt right into piglets. There in the water, an umbrella is turned on its head and transformed into a makeshift boat. What blessings are exposed as I become the impartial witness to life's ever-changing unfolding. Water finds its own level, the old Pooh of the Tao would tell us. What alternative do I have anyway? Attachment to plans and results in this relative world of impermanence and duality leads only to seeing life as an endless succession of disappointments. There seems to be a choice on the material plane. I may choose hope or I may choose doom. Surely all experience is colored by perception and perspective. As if to illustrate this point, out of the black light, Eeyore materializes in deadpans. First the wind and now this. And just as quickly in fluorescent relief is young Roo. Whee, this is fun. And Rabbit chimes in, goodness gracious. How joyful the heart of a child wrapped in wonder and mischief. I am now fully identified with the drama of the play. The Leela of life acted out upon the earthly stage. Gliding along, I sleepwalk into the dream. With my son by my side, I am swept up into the joy of fatherhood, the great calling and purpose of creation. I am intoxicated by this splendid identity, the karma of familial duty and bliss. There is such sweetness in this role and so much comfort in losing myself in service. This gift of the cosmos, how could there be a more sacred and fulfilling pursuit than bearing and raising a child? Time blurs and speeds up and slows down. These days so long and years that go by in the blink of an eye. My heart is overflowing with earthly joy when on cue the spirit of Devi Durga riding upon her tiger steed pops out of the ceiling like a sprout that cannot be contained by the earth's vital soil and shouts for no good reason but to exclaim that life incarnates, that love manifests from the heart of creation. I'm Tigger. Winnie the Pooh has fallen asleep. For a moment, he sits in a nightshirt and cap, then spins head over heels through a suddenly darkened void. Without a boom, the world explodes. A psychedelic technicolor yawn sprays its garish vibrancy over every inch of stagecraft. Heffalumps and woozles, heffalumps and woozles. The mind begins to twist as the ego attaches to pleasure and avoidance of pain. Paranoid delusions are wrapped in stripes of duality. No longer centered in the ultimate reality, I am again caught. Beware, beware. Grasping for honey at every turn, the happy little bear is bound by long tentacles of sticky, sweet, viscous liquid. No longer aware, unable to differentiate the true from the false, he is completely lost in the delusion and confounding confusion of transitory earthly delight. What a beautiful dream, he says, with eyes completely shut and a smile from ear to cute and fuzzy ear. If only this dream could last. If only material things could provide us with imperishable joy. But alas, that is not the way in this world of constant change. I must be rooted in the eternal if I am to find true satisfaction. Keep coming back. Keep coming home. But the bear, stuck in honey, he looks so happy. Maybe I could stay in that state forever, like the junkie with his opium master stuck in a state of suspension from reality. All the pleasure receptors lit up in a synthetic stimulation of synaptic physiology. Alas, deep down I know there is no escaping the truth. In the darkness, alone in silence, the heart knows and begins to stir. Wake up, Pooh. A bodiless voice, a Buddha, speaks from the void. My God, I'm not making this up. This book writes itself. Here in the heart of Disneyland, the Buddha speaks. The heart is reborn. The Guru's voice lovingly guides me back to conscious awareness. Happy birthday, Pooh. Haha, yes, happy birthday, you cuddly little critter. For surely too I am reborn. The first day of the rest of my life, the first step on a new journey, reawakened to the predicament of being, and happy to celebrate each unspoiled moment anew. The present is a present, wrapped in ribbon and bright colored paper. Eeyore, the beautiful tragedy, the symbol of suffering, the ass who lost his ass, is there to punctuate the narrative. I hope you like my present. The music pipes along, and I take a breath and smile. Oh boy, we got time for one more? What time is it? Oh yeah, we got time. Sorry guys. I hope you're enjoying this. I have no idea. I can't really read. Yes, please.
What was your intention of communicating to the world?
Love. Truth.
So what you are telling me, that if we don't cherish this wisdom, we are all fucked
Oh gosh. That's too much responsibility. No, my story is not you must do what I do to get what I have. My story is you must do what you must do to get to where you're going to go. So I went to fucking Disneyland. So the door's open, guys. You're welcome. Yeah,
Say
man.
something about why Disneyland. How did this come about?
Yes. Well, the short answer is I went to Disneyland and I had a spiritual awakening. That really is what happened. But what was that awakening? What caused that was that I had a meditation practice and I had a recovery practice, and I realized the truth of being through these practices, that my entire life is the ground of my practice. And if I'm going to see everything as my practice, that's going to include a trip to Disneyland too. Like God or awakening doesn't stop when I am in the material plane. The awakening to me, the Dharma, is, as I said, made up of life stuff. That this is the truth of being, but it's joyful that it can also include things like amusement parks. Why not? If I can find God at Disneyland, I think we can find it anywhere, But that said, Disneyland is rich with stories and with mythology, fairy tales, and these stories are universal in their portrayal of the human condition. And what I saw, because I'm not a scholar, but I'm open and learning things about Buddhism and about Hindu philosophy, Advaita, non-dualism. I saw these parallels very clearly right away. And honestly, the first ride that I went on that opened me up was was Indiana Jones, which is the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. And this ride, the narrative of that ride is Beware the Eye of Mara. And as anybody knows who's read Siddhartha or studied, some of the Buddhist texts, I'm not an expert once again, but there's this idea of Mara as the embodiment of earthly attachment. He's portrayed as a demon, if you want to get kind of moralistic and scary about it. But, essentially it's attachment to the physical plane and sort of a personification of attachment and fear. And so that narrative was already there. So I went through the ride and I went, that was a trip. Like, wow, they're talking about Mara. I just sat here and meditated this morning and got in studying this Buddhist thing, trying to figure out what that's all about. And here they're telling the story right here in Disneyland. Well, I'm also a student of the yogic Bhagavad Gita, Hindu pantheon and that stuff. So I walked out of the Indiana Jones ride, and this is all in the book, by the way, but, and right in the Jungle Cruise is this freaking Murti, this statue of Hanuman, this monkey statue. So I walk out of this thing and I'm like, beware the eye of Mara. That's insane. Like, it's just the eye of Mara is this way of seeing the world and being attached to the mirror of I need to be aware of that, to not see the world, in that limited way, that there's something behind that. I walk out, I see this image of Hanuman and I just wanted to hit my knees. I wanted to cry. I wanted to offer prasad and give an offering and pranam, get down on my hands and knees and just weep in joy for this image of love and devotion. And that's what started it. That's what started it. And believe me, I did not think I could get through all the rides. I just didn't think. It's like a silly idea. You're like, that would be funny. And then I started trying to do it and it just kept working. I mean, fucking Winnie the Pooh. I mean, I just read you that. All that stuff I was saying, like, that's in the ride. I'm not making this shit up. Like, it's like he falls asleep, right? This is the dream, the delusion, and we're awakening. That's what Buddha means. Like, it literally, he goes to sleep in the ride. He gets stuck in he's attached. He gets stuck in the honey and the pleasure and all that stuff. And literally you turn the corner and it goes, wake up, Pooh, wake up. I was fucking floored. It's like, what? And then, with the recovery stuff where they're like, happy birthday. It's like, you just got reborn. Wake up. You just been reborn and they're giving out. I mean, this stuff it's just, I don't know. My intention was just to report the fucking crazy shit that I saw. I'm not a writer. I'm really just a reporter.
Probably you get the standing line.
Yeah.
So just literally, you had a practice and you literally popped at Disneyland. That's what happened, or it wasn't that you went to Disneyland and had
an ecstatic
experience, or is that what happened?
Well,
literally what happened.
Okay, this is much fun. This is much funner than reading. I like this better. But well, see, the first thing I read was in 2007. So what happened was I had a child. I had a son. I hadn't been to Disneyland in 25 years since I was 14. I went back when I was 45 or something like that. It's been 25 years. I don't know, do the math. I can't do it fast enough. I'm too nervous. But I went there with my son. I mean, I could read you the thing, but I had an ecstatic moment for lack of any, why even try to explain it as anything else. Like, I just had this moment of true love, of just passionate heart opening with my 3-year-old son sitting on my shoulders. And I watched the fireworks and I felt at home. And it was so palpable, this sense that the sacred really does abide in the mundane. in this material incarnation, God is there all the time. Awakening is this gateless gate that is there all the time. And yet here was this just magical moment of just gushing devotional love. But I didn't write the book until 2016 or 17. So there was a good 9 years there of going back to Disneyland with my son and just having these wonderful experiences. And then ultimately around 2014, right around when Revolution of the Heart came out, I started a sitting practice of meditation. And that's when I started to learn a little bit more of the fancy stuff like Mara and non-attachment and all the fun, what we call it, Jnana yoga, the knowledge yoga stuff. And through that really was more of an intellectual practice, but combined with the sitting practice, I just had this opening. So it was both sudden and gradual. Do you want to hear another story? Go ahead.
Notes at Disneyland?
No, not at all.
No, this is after.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, man, I mean, believe it or not, I know you're not going to believe this, but I really don't get that much into the supernatural. But I had a lot of these crazy coincidence experiences in the writing of the book where I just got the information I needed at the time I needed it. It was so weird. I didn't take notes, but I would get to a new ride, a new chapter, and I would just sit and meditate. This is what I want to be an example of, a teaching. This is my teaching. I just sat and meditated, and the mind came up with these connections, and my life came up with these connections. It was bizarre. That stuff I read about Jack Kornfield and stuff, like I would just be listening to his podcast and it would just be like, he would start talking about Abraham Lincoln. I'm like, why are you talking about Abraham Lincoln? And right when I'm like writing the Abraham Lincoln chapter, you know what I mean? Like it was just freaking bizarre, dude. So, I mean, like I said, I know you're not going to believe me. I really don't get that much into the supernatural, but this thing was just like happening. I was sitting there listening on Audible to Ram Dass's reading of the Bhagavad Gita, right when I got to that Lincoln chapter. And I'm like, wait a second, the Gita's about a civil war? Like, what the fuck was that? You know what I mean? Like, the Gita is the story of I was just like, what? Abraham Lincoln becomes this yogi, defending the Union. Yoga means union. The United States of America? United States! What the fuck? Like, I'm not making this shit up. Like, I just sat and meditated, and it just became clear. I don't know, man. We live in the yoga, in the yoga realm. The United States, and what it's Lincoln, the defender of the Union. And there's all this mythology around him too. This myth that when he was 8 years old, he picked up an axe. This whole thing about honest Abe, the truth, the Dharma is the truth, honest Abe. And then the yogi practice, sat is truth. Like truth and God is like one thing in that language. And here's this guy who had this axe and he just chopped away delusion and defended the Union.
He's Krishna?
He could be. Yeah.
Lincoln was Krishna.
Yeah. Or Shiva. I'm a big Shiva guy. So I like to chop and destroy delusion with my axe of truth.
I have a request.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to hear the Star Wars chapter.
Thank you. This is my dream in life. This is Yoda in meditation with his Mickey Mouse ears. Thank you. Star Tours, from outer to inner space. Yoga plus Buddha equals Yoda. I'm not making this shit up, guys. I have known much of heaven since I entered this magic land. I have let go of the reins and no longer feel invested in the push and pull of choosing a destination. My family speaks of Tomorrowland, Buzz Lightyear, lasers, and I am happy to be whisked away. Then the glittering utopia is revealed, the daddy of cosmic leelas, a journey through the heavens. I shall become stardust blown through creation by solar winds. The sun's corona shall be my crown. The father of light, the big bang, the beginning of time, the yoga of singularity, the conservation of matter, mass neither created nor destroyed. I have yet to even board the first ride, and I'm already floating through the stratosphere. I am space itself to any other beings in the universe. We are the aliens from the deepest reaches of the never-ending void. We are cosmonauts hurtling through the infinite night. I may need to get out of the sun and sit down. There is a doorway up ahead, but this offers no resting place. It is a terminal bay, and a flight is at hand. We enter the queue and are shuffled toward the dock. Along the way, we encounter old friends who appear both futuristic and somehow technologically outdated. There in shining brilliance is the timid yet garrulous C-3PO. He is the Tin Man with a heart, a protocol droid who never shuts up. C-3PO, human cyborg relations. He is fluent in 6,000 languages, but utterly incapable of deciphering simple social cues. And thank the maker, it's R2-D2, a sight for old and tired eyes. He is the fearless and faithful one, animated by spirit, not by breath, but by the electric current of life. Keep moving, a wisecracking security droid hurries us on with a mild reproach, then continues with vapid small talk. But underneath, I pick up a hint of mindfulness. Haven't I scanned you somewhere before? Is this not the language of conscious awareness? Perhaps a clue to the real journey ahead. Most surely it is, for at this very moment, all in line are given a new pair of glasses for a special kind of seeing. Then ushered to our seats aboard a galactic transport. Buckle up. A radioed voice within the cabin alerts us of our status. You are cleared for takeoff. Initiate departure sequence. C-3PO and R2-D2 are already aboard. Before the ship can depart, the perpetually paranoid 3PO is launched into a spiral of anxiety and backpedaling. We are not ready for takeoff. I'm not the actual captain. Yes, my friend, we are all compulsory pilots on this flight of consciousness, hurtling through space aboard these carbon-based vessels of physical incarnation. Then over a loudspeaker, a voice is heard. Attention all transports, hold for security clearance. Stormtroopers appear and 3PO's protestations begin to take on a more panicked pitch. It's a lot of P's. Well, we'll be deactivated for sure. This is truth, for we all reach the end of this mortal coil. But not now, my gilded friend. Space is our calling and escape the destination. But this journey will only lead us back to ourselves, as they always do. We must venture now to the farthest reaches of the galaxy in order to find our way back to the beginning. Suddenly, the ship is being scanned by a flying security droid with a single red eye. He is attempting to locate a rebel spy. Certainly they are on to me. They must surely know that the yogi and bodhisattva are the witness observing from within, rebelling against the stream of thought and dreamlike unawareness. The droid has attached his insect-like body to the windshield. He is obstructing the view like the Seventh Army of Mara, casting doubt upon the virtue and plausibility of our mission, calling our vessel to abort liftoff, to remain stuck at the first gate. Detachment is required. Stay calm, but go. This Leela is a most convincing mirror of the mind's eye playing out in three-dimensional clarity. Is this spaceship on a course to outer or inner space? There seems to be no discernible difference. Stay present, stay open. The spy has been called upon to make this journey. We are off to worlds unknown, fully awake to the mystery before us. Leaving the portal for the darkness of space, the Leela of the mind is in full swing. Giant cruisers crowd about like overbearing memories, while smaller TIE fighters dart and spin in synaptic attack. Laser fire shoots back and forth, and the transport twists and dips to avoid entanglement and collision. The effects are not just visual. They produce a sensation so visceral and kinetic, I actually feel my body falling, speeding, flying, and dropping. Then, true to form, without the shortest respite to center in the body, the monkey mind is off again, this time at light speed. Stars streak by, their fluorescent trails create a tunnel of light from which we are immaculately born, into the next state of conscious awareness, the planet of Tatooine. Far from the bright center of the universe, I emerge on a racetrack where a pod race is in full swing. I am afforded not a single moment to appreciate the newness of my surroundings, to dip into the wonder of the child mind. This is not the space of tranquil peace, but a battle for glory and fame. Freedom is at stake. A wager has been made. There is no time to say goodbye to dear mother or give a warm last look into the bright eyes of childhood innocence. If only I could steal a glance in the rearview mirror of the dreams I've left behind. There's no time now, nor was there then, for love, romance, or a father's comforting hand. Speeding around this desert track, looking up only long enough to make minor course corrections, there is purity and velocity, and a sense of joy and excitement in the pursuit of victory. In the same way, Anakin was swept up in the flow that would birth Vader. For is it not the boy who fathers the man? Anakin, the father who had no father, was really not so different from you or me. When viewed in this way, could we not say that all conception is on some level immaculate? For surely it must originate from that which has yet to come into being and manifest only when conditions are present and right. To punctuate the point, in serendipitous synchronicity, our ship snags another racer. This proves not the entanglement of rivals, but a collision with destiny. With the help of the pod racer, our power is doubled and we speed victoriously past the finish line. But wait, we are unable to slow down. We nearly careen into the crowd, but pull up at the last possible moment, shooting off again into the obscurity of space. For the briefest moment, there is darkness. Close the eyes to open the eyes. A transmission is received. It is wise Yoda, the Yogi Buddha. We are all called into his loving service. Yoda I am. On this ship is one loyal to our cause you carry. On this ship, one loyal to our cause you carry. Deliver him you must, or all will be lost. May the force be with you. Yes, the spy, the witness within, of course. And like that, we have all just joined the rebel alliance. We must go against the stream of negative thought, of fear-based mind chatter, of dark anxiety born of ignorance and delusion. Resist the pull of the dark side through non-attached appreciation and immersion in abiding love. We inhabit the space of loving awareness, no longer caught by the mind. We shall not be seduced by the dark forces of fear and resentment, nor led to distraction by each glowing star on the infinite horizon. We are now on a mission. Intention has been set. The streaking lights of hyperspace again envelop us as we pass through a wormhole of space and consciousness, the mind at light speed. We exit into an asteroid field and are immediately attacked by the bounty hunter Boba Fett. It feels as if all 10 of Mara's armies are upon us. We blast our way out and are suddenly face to face with the Death Star, the sphere of death. The voice of Vader is heard as if coming from within. I have you now. But Vader, we know, has let go long before. Mortally wounded, Vader completely surrendered for the first time to the flow of the Force. He hurled the demonic Sith Lord Darth Sidious over the railing and finally faced the dark specter of his mistrust and resentment. In that moment, he recognized for the first time his son as the manifestation of his life and love. He saw that his karma had been good all along, even while trapped in the darkness of ignorance and delusion. The dark side. Endlessly, he had spiraled, orbiting a Death Star, a ball of hate and violence. In meditation, he had met resistance with resistance. He chased down every rebellious and scurrilous thought, attempting to stamp them out, but they only multiplied. In the end, his mask was removed, and the scarred and twisted, vulnerable being within was revealed. And from that place of truth and openness, he experienced grace, forgiveness, to meet the eyes of his son, his loved child, his karma, and feel the warmth of connection, to finally feel the force surrounding and penetrating his being in all of its manifestations. He became stardust, light, energy, He was one with the cosmos and its atomic particles. Vader, in an instant of love and trust, was transformed. He was science and God, the past and future, here, now, in this Tomorrowland. A long time ago, he died into life and was one with eternity. Back on the transport, it's time for us to turn and face the journey ahead. We are not absent of fear. We are courageous in its presence. C-3PO has begun to translate the silent language of empathy. I have a bad feeling about this. Imagine a droid who speaks of feelings, a true master of communication. Rather than run or turn away, we penetrate the orb of death. It is only by going through that one is able to get past the shadow realms. I'm getting us out of here. The usually timid C-3PO leads the way while brave and loyal R2-D2 whistles in approval. Now confident, 3PO assures us, I know exactly what I'm doing. We zig and zag through the inner mechanics of the Death Star, avoiding collision with traffic, moving through this hate-filled construction. An opening is located. We make our escape, but are ambushed upon exit. The bounty hunter is back. Say goodbye, rebel spies. Boba Fett attacks with a sonic bomb. Coming out of deep meditation or retreat can feel like an assault to the senses, but our reflexes are honed. We easily parry the blow with a quick laser blast. Then we are off again at light speed, this time to the loving arms of our supportive Sangha. We are grateful you made it. You are all heroes of the rebellion. There is a smattering ovation, but we are not caught up in praise. We are rebels with a pause. The reward cultivated from our journey is the gift of a moment, an instant to respond before we react. Before we go down the dark path on reflex, to self-correct in real time is no easy feat. One must return to the rebel base, the place of bemusement at the never-ending battle for our attention, our soul, and the fate of the universe. The Bodhisattva dedicates the merits of his or her practice to the benefit of all sentient beings from every far corner and sphere of this galactic mandala we call home. Namaste, and thank you for flying Star Tours. Bye-bye.
So thank you. Thank you, Eben. Awesome. Eben has books available and some other merch, some prints. This big, who is it, Durga?
Yeah.
Durga on the Cheshire Cat with a royal flush.
Durga is Kali Ma. She chops your head off if you don't send her in the heart.
So there's prints of that. And as he said, this book is filled with art, a bunch of tattoo artists and other artists that made paintings or created pieces for the book. So he'll be over there if you want to get a book and have him sign it. And class is done by donation. Thank you for being here. $15 or $20 donation. If you can afford it, give whatever feels appropriate to you. Chris will be at the desk. There's a bowl over there for your donations. And see you next week to continue our battle with our own inner Darth Vader and development of compassion and wisdom. And come sit on Wednesday if you care to. And see you next Monday.